Good morning and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. This week we're looking at the time between the Testaments. The collection of writings from this time are called the Apocrypha, and they can be inspiring and strengthen our faith. But many don't consider these works to be fully Scripture. Today we want to explore the additions to Esther, the wisdom of Solomon, and Ecclesiasticus. The additions to Esther are passages that were originally intended to be inserted into the biblical book of Esther. Esther is a much-loved story of how a Jewish woman saved her people from death in Babylon. Esther's story is still celebrated every year with the Jewish holiday of Purim. However, when the Jewish scholars were putting their scriptures into a collection, which we now call the Old Testament, the book of Esther almost didn't make it. Although there's never any doubt that God is behind the events described in the book of Esther, God is never mentioned. The book called Additions to Esther sought to fix that problem. These passages were meant to be inserted, giving God a more specific role in acting, along with clearing up some details to make a more complete story. But even though they seek to bring God into the story in an overt way, it's clear that these are additions later on and aren't part of the original. In the Apocrypha, there's a book called The Wisdom of Solomon. You probably remember Solomon. Solomon was the king after David, and he asked God for wisdom and was considered the wisest person who ever lived. Our Bible has several books of what is called wisdom literature, although most of us really don't enjoy reading them. They're kind of like the philosophy section of the Bible, full of advice for living and understanding the world. You might think of books like Proverbs or Ecclesiastes. These books were supposedly written by Solomon, and maybe so, but eventually someone thought, wouldn't it be neat to have writings direct from Solomon's own hand? And then they created some that claimed to be just that. And so we have the book called The Wisdom of Solomon. And to be honest, there's good stuff here, but it just seems to lack a certain something that makes it Scripture. It's B material, not A material. The last book we'll look at for today is called Ecclesiasticus, or Wisdom of Sirach. This is a very long collection of wisdom, proverbs, poems, and songs. It talks about humility, charity, pride, the tongue, anger, and even gives some rules of table etiquette. It also speaks a lot about family relationships, husband and wife, father and son, and so on, although I doubt many of us would follow his strict guidance nowadays. It urges the people to a stronger faith lived out in life and to practice social justice, particularly for the poor and the weak. This is one of the few books we know the details about who wrote it and when. It was written in 175 BC by Jesus, son of Sirach. The reason it's not in the Bible is that it expresses disbelief in life after death. So taken together, these books of wisdom do offer sage advice for living the faithful life. Within their limitations, they can still offer us guidance for how to live the life God wishes for us to live. May we strive to do so. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.